All right. Welcome to the Winner Circle, the podcast where we dive deep into the minds of achievers, thought leaders to uncover the secrets of success. I'm your host, Jay, and today I have an incredible guest joining us for a thought-provoking conversation. Ken Bogard, the founder of No Honesty, is here to share his insight on a topic that's essential for every business leaders and entrepreneurs. So today we're going to be talking about the power of honest communication and why matters for business leaders and entrepreneurs. So as I already know, Ken's mission is to transform how leaders communicate by fostering environment built on trust, integrity, and authenticity. So with his deep experience in leadership and coaching, Ken will be breaking down how transparency not only builds stronger teams, but also enhance customer loyalty and drive sustainable business success. So in this episode, we'll explore why honesty communication is a must-have for leadership skills and how embracing transparency can shape the future of your business. So I just want to let you know something. You don't want to miss this insight that Ken is going to share for us today. So without further ado, let's welcome Ken Bogard to the winner circle. Hi, Ken.
Hey, Jay, this is great. I so enjoyed the conversation we had in the past, and now here we are, we're doing it. So this is special to me. Thanks for having me.
All right, you're welcome. Thank you for being on the show today. So I have quite a number of things to discuss about because this topic is actually a very critical topic for business owners. They need to take note of this particular session. It's very, very important if you want your business to grow and move forward. So, but before we move to that part, let's talk about your professional journey. You have a very inspiring career because I've seen through your profile. So, could you walk me or the listeners through the key moment that led you to found or start No Honesty? What's your what personal or professional experience shaped your focus in setting up an organization like that?
Jay, I equate it to a long equation, X times Y and 2B equals here we are today. So there's just a number of pieces on this equation that have led me to where I'm at today. And I think the biggest one to share with everyone, and based on your leadership background and the kind of work you do, I think I'll share that I've been implementing EOS, the entrepreneurial operating system, in the companies for about 8.5 years, almost 10 years, if you consider where I started. And along that journey of implementing this system that helps business owners and entrepreneurs get what they want, I had this realization about 2 years in that the systems that we implement into organizations to help them get what they want, like data or organization or accountability charts or getting their visions locked into place or getting them to select the top key priorities and all these different tools and practices, quite frankly, are worthless if the team cannot be both honest and open with one another. And so 2 years into my journey, I saw these healthy rules that were on the wall of a session room of somebody else that I knew. And one of the healthy rules was you have to be open and honest. And I had this light bulb go off in my head. And I was thinking about how I was leading leaders and managers and owners through this process. And I'm like, that is the missing piece. I had this epiphany. And so I went back to my teams, and every time we would have a session, I would lead them through these healthy rules. And I'm like, look, if we're to have a great day together, the agenda's great, the objectives are great. But if this team cannot be 100% honest and 100% open, we are not going to get the full value out of today. So those are the two things that we have to be. And I think that is what really propelled all of this to where I'm at today.
All right, thank you so much for that view and sharing your how you got started with us. Um, I was going to ask a follow-up question, you know. So you talked about you know, how you got it started. So, but what you never mentioned the driving force behind creating no honesty. Like, was there a particular event or realization that you know that, oh, I need to get started tomorrow?
Yeah. Get started tomorrow. Well, it's interesting. So I'm going to give you a few events, Jay, and I'll let you're great at this. You can pick which event you want. As a young child, I was raised by my father solo. I was picked on, I was bullied, and communication was not strong in our household. That's one event. I grow into a young man. I become a very honest person, but not open to the world and destroy relationships. That's another event. I go to college, and my professor tells me the single biggest issue in companies is communication, and I didn't believe him. I take a multitude of careers, and I realize the professor is correct, and there's lying, and there's skirting the truth, and there's all these issues with people lacking honesty and integrity in the workplace that is destroying and hurting companies. Then I realized I want to help multiple businesses and multiple organizations and entrepreneurs implement and get more honesty into their organization. And I found EOS, and that was the best mousetrap at the time. And then, like I told you, 2 years in, I saw these healthy rules be open and honest. And finally, it all clicked and pulled everything together in my life to be like, this is what I'm going to drill home. This is the missing piece. And not just in businesses, but this has a much grander view of society and how we act with one another, and certainly applies in organizations. I mean, that's what's going to pay the bills. But from a bigger view on this world and what we're trying to do, has some great implications when people embrace it. Also, Jay, I come from a place called West Michigan Nice, which feels nice, and everybody's nice to each other. I think there's West Michigan Nice, and then somebody told me, Felicia, she told me there's New York Spice. And so we have some differences, right? But I think we
Yes.
struggle with the courage to be honest over here. So I come from kind of a culture of where honesty isn't really embraced in the way that it should be to help put truth on the table.
All right. You're right. You're right. So now let's talk about a little bit about honest communication. Honesty, then honest communication. So honest communication itself can mean different things to different people. So how do you define it in a business context?
Sure. I think honesty has, people are going to put their own spin on it, but here's how we view it and how I define it for every single client that I work with. There's two parts, both honesty and openness. And I know, Jay, we're going to get into both of them. Honesty, as I define it, is being truly and freely yourself, speaking into what you want and how you feel. Like, Jay, I take you for an authentic human being. Just be you, let your freak flag fly, and I'll be open to it. Like, that's who I want in my life, is an honest human being. Somebody's just going to tell me exactly what's going on in their head. And I think I'm the kind of person who's just open to whatever comes out of their mouth. But I think everybody's got to do that. So there's this other side of communication. Honesty is great in the definition I gave you. And quite frankly, society is loving honesty, loves identity, loves unique you. They love all this stuff. But where we need communication to graduate to is this other side of the equation, which is openness. Openness to me is listening without reservation, putting your needs and wants on pause for somebody else. And the reason the two sides matter is because, Jay, I'm going to be honest with you here on your podcast. And I ask that you be totally open to me. Now, that doesn't mean agree with me. That just means listen to me without reservation, as you do very well. And my hopes are that you're going to be honest back at me, and I'm going to be totally open to you. Now, if you and I do that, we're having a real exchange, real communication taking place. That's what I want in every single team that I work with. And quite frankly, what I want for everyone in this world.
All right. Thank you so much for that view. And
Do you
I
agree, Jay?
yes, thank you so much for that view. Well, I agree with quite a number of the things you're saying, quite a number. And you're the expert here when it comes to honesty, and also it's something that needs to be pushed in the when in the business and leadership settings, because a lot of people don't understand the value of transparency in leadership. So I'm going to throw the question to you now, all right? Because now we're talking about the value of transparency in leadership. In your own opinion, why is transparency, because it's quite different from honesty too. They're almost on the same line, but let's just look at transparency itself. So why is transparency so vital for effective leadership? So, and how does it, because we're talking about a lot of teams, so how does it influence the way team works together? And what difference does it make in terms of building a strong organizational structure or culture?
Yeah, what a beautiful question, and an important one that needs to be addressed by every single leader if they want to do the responsible thing. In my opinion, it's radical transparency and begin building a culture that's going to open up and share here's where reality is at, because I believe that's what transparency is reality. And a lot of times leaders are filtering the truth, or they're skirting things, or in many instances, and unfortunately, hiding things that need to come to the surface. The reason transparency is so important in an organization, I'd like to liken it to a relationship. So, Jay, let's just assume we're partnering somehow, some way in the future together. And you're an organization and I'm an organization. And if you yourself are hiding things from me and you will not tell me everything, and you're not willing to engage in deeper conversations about certain things, where do you think my trust will land with you? I mean, it will not be strong. You'll get the sense that something's going on, that Jay doesn't want to tell me something. And if I did that to you, I don't think you would be very trusting of me. And so when you look at it from just a very small point of view like that, just two people and their relationship, and they're not transparent with one another, it breeds the grounds for mistrust. And there's not too many organizations that raise their hand and say, I would like mistrust throughout my entire organization, please. And so transparency is crucial for building trust. But I think there is a responsibility on the leader too, to help people digest what is shared. And so I think that's a lot of times where we get transparency wrong, where we share things like, if I could think, one of the most challenging issues a company might face is making big cuts. And so let's just say you got to cut 20% of your workforce. Uh, there's not too many leaders that are like, all right, here we go. Let's just go ahead and broadcast that to the rest of the organization. But I think not everybody is sitting in the boardroom understanding the decisions made that have required us to have a 20% cut or reduction in our workforce. And so I think a lot of time people also have to be great educators as to, hey, we have a big decision in front of us, and here's what we have to do to sustain our business or gain profits or allow us to reinvest in the future. And unfortunately, that means cuts for the workforce. But when you hide it and you save it for the last second, and then all of a sudden, without any information or news broadcasted to the organization, and you just start cutting with no context whatsoever, immediate mistrust, rumors, conspiracy theories, all sorts of things go wrong. And that's not what you're trying to build. And quite frankly, if we're a really transparent organization, cuts coming wouldn't be a big surprise, because that leadership team is letting us know where revenue and profits are at on a regular basis. What's going on with our efficiency and our production and the status of the company. And when it's beginning to look grim, it won't be such a surprise that 20% cuts are coming. And so I think there is a very big case for transparency in that.
Wow, that's a big case for transparency, you know. But when you're in a crisis, sometimes as a business owner, some business owners they feel like they need that, if we let some of the staff knows about some things, they might, share the information out. So they might be, trying to conceal the information they have, and they're not transparent about those information, especially during time of crisis. So what is your take if you're a business leader or a business owner, and you get to a point, there's some information that about the organization, maybe you're getting to the point where you're losing a lot of money, or whatever the information is, that you feel like you want to conceal it, you don't want other people or other organization or whoever, maybe your competitors, to know about. How do you handle that? How do you conceal that?
Yeah.
For transparency's sake, can you just let all your staff know and say, okay, this is what we're going through, and you know and they can help you just pass the information to competitors?
That's great. I think there are moments, so let me be realistic with everyone. There are moments where you just can't conceal everything. And there are moments you can't unveil everything. In particular, sharing everything 100% of the time is not what I'm talking about. And what I am talking about in your question around transparency is trying to do the best we can to share as much as reasonable. And so when you have these moments where you have to conceal something, I understand that. There are some rare scenarios where that has to be the case. I get it. But let's not make that our rule. Let's not make that our approach to how we're going to do business and build a beautiful culture at an organization. And so I don't teach that. I'm teaching, let's lean into transparency more, and let's see where we can be a little bit more transparent with things. And then I also think an honest answer coming from leadership is, I don't know, or I cannot share that yet. And that doesn't make you dishonest, but that's just where you're at with certain items. And then two things I have to mention, Jay. I mean, in the United States, your HR issues need to be private. So can we all just share that that's a part of it? I mean, you can't go around, you don't mess with HR. We should all have learned that in our careers. Two, there's legal issues. So there's certain agreements in place and other things that stop us from sharing things legally or being transparent. So I think those are two big caveats to the whole thing. There's HR issues and there's legal issues that stop us from transparency. But the rest of it, we should really be evaluating, how do we get this out and educate our reasons for decisions, and how do we share that with the rest of the organization? And certainly, your leadership team, you got to get it to be as transparent as possible. So please start at the top. You don't have to unveil everything to the whole organization. Let's begin with some transparency at the top. And the other issue that we're up against, so when we teach no honesty, or we're teaching this idea behind being open and honest, I think we're realizing when we have an assessment, Jay, that people can take, and it measures how open and honest you are in your work life and how open and honest you are in your personal life. And it kind of helps you evaluate where you might have some gaps in your game. And the observation for many is that some people struggle being honest in their personal life, but they're very honest in their work life. And so we've been thinking about that and toiling over what that could mean. And here's how I take it. At work, it's generally speaking a newer relationship than your family. So your family, your father, mother, sister, brother, you've known them for however many years of your life. You've agreed to communicate a certain way with them, in which is often poorly. And then you get into a workplace and you're being invited to talk with honesty. And it's a brand new workplace. You can start the relationship anew and start it on an open and honest one, as opposed to in your personal life, oftentimes you're unpacking some huge historical agreement of communicating poorly with one another. And the different dynamics in family, of course, play into that. What I'm trying to say by all this is that in a company that maybe has been around for hundreds of years and has not been transparent for 100 years, we should probably take baby steps of transparency as opposed to jumping full into the lake and exposing everything about our organization versus, let's say, a startup who has an opportunity to start the relationship as a transparent one with all of its employees as it grows into a bigger organization. It's just much easier to implement that than to unpack historical issues.
All right. Thank you so much for clarifying that, because that's why I asked that particular question, because some people are listening to this and so, "Oh, they say transparency mean we should start sharing all the information about business to everybody." No. So you already said when it comes to HR, when it comes to some part of the organization, there's some things you need to actually conceal, or probably you can start with the hierarchy, the leaders. So you talked about personal honesty, like as an individual, you know, just being honest. It's different. Did you say it's different from business honesty?
Yeah, I mean, in the scoring, so we score people from 0 to 100% for what's your work life honesty like. So, Jay, with your clients and with your staff and anybody you're working with, are you able to be truly and freely yourself? And then you're also evaluated in our assessment. It's called the Pursuit of Honesty Assessment, by the way. Shameless plug. But the other side of it is your personal life. Are you able in your personal life with your significant other, your kids, your family, brother, sister, mother, wherever that's at? Are you able to be truly and freely yourself? And it's just interesting because everybody that takes it tends to have different answers. And sometimes in varying differences of 30% more honest at work than at home, or vice versa. And so we see that in some of our statistics, and it's just striking a nerve that I think we got to pay attention to it. And so what's going on in your personal life that you can't be truly and freely yourself? That's something to evaluate. Why is it being squashed? Or why aren't you having the courage to be yourself, or what's going on there? So the assessment creates some awareness within people.
All right, thank you so much. One thing I understand is sometimes honesty could be more than a moral virtue. All right. It could also be a business strategy, where if you have a practical business strategy and people know that, oh, these people are very honest, they always share those information, and they're going to tap into buying from you because you are very honest with everything. So you as a professional and as a coach, how do you see honesty as more than just a moral virtue, just being moral about it, but also a practical business strategy where you know where it can contribute to a company's success?
Yeah, great one.
Yeah.
Jay, you should have warmed me up with these questions. I'd be able to nail them. No, here's my real answer to that. It's two words: competitive advantage. I think when you're an honest organization at the top, let's just imagine a company at the top where leadership teams ready to be truly and freely themselves. And by the way, we're kind of honing in on honesty, but we have to remember that the equation is this: honesty plus openness equals real communication. So you need both sides. So let's agree to be honest, and let's agree to be open to one another. So that's what I'm talking about in the whole of the equation. But if we're sticking with honesty, I believe it's a competitive advantage because oftentimes I think a number of my clients that are very successful here, that they're very open and honest, and they've done a really good job of pushing it down throughout the rest of the organization. And I know the types. And then I know other organizations that don't subscribe to it, that don't want it. And quite frankly, their cultures are not desirable. People don't necessarily want to be at company B where there's less openness and less honesty. And why is that? Because I think as humans, we value authenticity. We like the characters in our life who are real with us, who are not fake with us. Uh, it's hard to relate with somebody who's fake all the time. It's hard to get down to the truth. It's hard to get into a deeper conversation with a human being that skirts the truth. So if you think of an organization that hides things all the time, or is not being truly and freely their own personality, and are not allowing human beings to be truly and freely themselves, it's very restricting. and it's not freeing whatsoever. And so there's a sort of freedom in an organization that embraces open and honest. And you know that people love freedom. You know, it's one of these crazy words that, like, once in a while we can say it because there's some sort of authentic freedom in our life and we love it and we're after it. And so these organizations are creating freedoms for people to express their opinions, express their issues, express their solutions, and be heard and respected while doing so. In company B, they're restricted, their ideas are squashed, or there's no platform to bring up issues or solutions. They don't feel valued. They're not allowed to exist as they are, as some sort of truly and freely unique human being that they are. And so to me, I think honesty is attractive. And I do believe it's a competitive advantage. Not to mention that simply putting the true condition on the table allows a company to move faster through issues. So let's say you and I and 4 other people are a leadership team, and we are just honest about everything. Jay, if you didn't like how I act or how I present or how I'm trying to reach out to our employees, and you tell me this, I now have, because you agreed to be honest with me and you had the courage to be, and I was open to it, I now have the opportunity to improve upon myself and get stronger. If you were not honest with me and you let Ken do his thing, and I'm not going to coach him up or I'm not going to tell him how he's behaving, I don't have an opportunity to improve. So when you have a culture that's not embracing honesty, now we're hiding issues, we're burying the truth. And how can you really improve when you're doing that with all your issues? You got to know what they are so you can improve.
That's a perfect point. The point is very perfect, and there's no way a leader can move forward if they are not honest. At least people knowing the truth about some some decisions you make, instead of concealing it.
Right.
So, and that's just my take about that. So, and I as a person, I thought of something, because this show is for entrepreneurs and business owners. So there's a perfect information that they need right now because they're listening. So for entrepreneurs and business owners and leaders that are just starting out, maybe they are following our podcast or just for mentorship sake, to learn from people, expert like you. So what practical advice would you give them on building transparency into the DNA of their business from day one?
Yeah.
Not they've not even started. They just want to get started right now. So what advice would you give them
Yeah, that's great.
before they get started? Yeah.
And we're using transparency a little bit interchangeably, and they're not totally the same thing. I think what I would want an entrepreneur to cling to are the 2 words that I'm pressing upon, is this honesty piece and this openness piece. And from the get-go as an entrepreneur, you are about to experience incredible challenges, and you're about to experience a tremendous amount of people in your life that will either help you or hurt you. In that relationship with those people, I do believe everybody should be seeking as open and an honest relationship as they can with every single person in their life. And so I'll share this with you as a tactic. So as you're about to look for vendors in your life, right? So if you're building a product or a service and you need additional vendors to help you out, maybe a social media company or a manufacturing partner is going to build your product, or whatever it is that you need in your life, these are all relationships. The point is, when you pick your partner, we have this thing called the agreement. And here's how I use it, Jay. This is one of our practices in the book, No Honesty. That'll be out October 18th. But the agreement goes like this. Hey, Steve, I know we're talking about working together. And hey, I just want to agree to communicate with you a certain way and see how you feel about it. But Steve, what I would like you to do with me is I just want you to be 100% honest with me at all times, best you can. Be truly and freely yourself. speaking of what you want and how you feel about anything that I'm doing or how you feel about anything that we're partnering on. And here's the deal, Steve. I'm going to be open to you. I'm going to listen to you without reservation. I'm going to put my needs and wants on pause for you because you're the expert in this field. But I'm also going to be honest back at you, Steve. I'm going to tell you exactly how I feel back at you, and I ask that you be open to me. Now, if Steve, you and I can have this exchange, I think we have an opportunity for a beautiful partnership. Now, my experience has told me that most people will say, yes, I agree to that. And sometimes they don't mean it. So it takes practice to really understand who's bought into that concept. Because the vendors and the partnerships I want in my life are the ones that are 100% honest. And they're also open to my opinion. And they're going to listen to me as well. I mean, that's a partnership. That's a beautiful relationship that does those two things back and forth. And so for the entrepreneur to move faster, you got to have those two things in your life. And if you don't, you're going to move slower. That's it.
You're gonna move slower. Well, you've said very important information for newbies who are trying to set up business, because um if you have a baggage from the beginning, it's gonna slow you down. All right. So, but the thing is, how about people who already have the baggage, were not honest from the beginning, and mistakes happen in business. So now they're trying to go back, and probably they're listening right now. They love what you're saying, they love what you do, and they're like, you know what? I can actually start all over. Not start all over in real sense, but just change my business culture to being honest. You understand? So what's your advice to those leaders, how they should handle it, especially in front of their team and their clients?
Yeah. Hire me. How selfish is that? I had to say it, Jay. That's one avenue, okay? And I say that in just a little bit. You can get the book, you can take the assessment. But quite frankly, if you're learning this right now and you're listening to Jay's podcast, just take notes and take it back to your teams and ask them, can we agree to communicate this way? You have to start with educating people on what this means and what real communication could be for us. And so you got to start there. And then as you educate, you'll learn who's really bought into this idea or not. And then you have to meet somebody who's not bought in. You have to meet their resistance with curiosity and ask them, okay, so why are you not bought in? What's it going to take to get bought in? How could you not want to open and honest communication between us? And I think you got a real problem on your hands. Like, been there. I understand you and where you're at and having this historical problem. But you have to have the courage to go address it. Because I think now that you're hearing this podcast, why would you want anything else in your life? And so do not tolerate the bad behaviors of people being dishonest or lacking openness. It's bad behavior and it's got to go. And so it's going to take some massaging, some courage, and some consistency to talk about this on a regular basis. And here's the kind of consistency that I'm talking about. When I first had my executive assistant join my team about 6 years ago, daily, I told her, it's important for me that you are honest with me. I'll be open to it, but I'm honest to you and you be open to me daily for at least 30.
Are you struggling to grow your business? Our consulting firm can help. We specialize in developing strategies to increase profits, improve efficiency, and streamline operations. From startups to established companies, we provide personalized solutions to help your business succeed. Contact us today to schedule a consultation.
Days. She will tell you to this day, she thought I was a crazy person. And then after the fact, she's like, I get it. And I can't understand why any other organization would operate any other way, because of our relationship we have is really fluid, pure, clean, our ability to communicate back and forth without any sort of hesitancy or judgment or just expectations that are unclear doesn't exist because we are so open and honest with each other. It's crazy. And I think people who know us as this duo, Grace and myself, they want that in their life. And so that's why I know what you can have. You have to address it ad nauseum so you have it in your life too. And it's going to take some work for those of you that have big historical issues where this has existed for a long time, but you got to address it. And now that Jay and I are trying to set you free with this knowledge, you got to go back and get it implemented.
What are the long term? Thank you so much for the answer. So what are the long term benefits of being transparent and being honest, especially in a business setting?
Yeah, I will tell you. The first one that comes to mind, I mean, it's a little bit loose, but is confidence. I think there's certainly dominant figures in any leadership team you go to. And there's also some people that tend to be a little more quiet and reserved and struggle at being truly and freely themselves, but you want their voices heard. So what you're doing with this open and honest piece is you're lifting the confidence of the full team with honesty. With openness, can you think of the dominant individuals you've worked with, Jay, which I believe are numerous for you? But a lot of dominant individuals tend to just dictate what they want. They are oftentimes bulldozers, and they don't care what other people think. And that's a problem if you're trying to create a cohesive team. So if that person also wants a team, they have to lower that and they have to increase their openness to everybody else on the team. So what I think it does is it really balances out the power dynamics that exist on that team. And when you balance out the power dynamics, it's really a lift for the whole team because now you're getting everybody's ideas to the table. Everyone is heard and respected. And so confidence is lifted by this team. Also, what's taking place is that you can move faster as an organization, meaning that now that we can speak cleanly, Jay, you and I, purely, freely, we just talk about the real issues as opposed to dancing around them and trying to skirt the truth into something else or tiptoe into an issue very carefully. I just say, hey, look, I got an issue. You're not hitting your numbers. What's going on? Let's sit down and talk about that. Accountability is much higher because we have the courage to call anything out at any time. And you almost have the permission to talk however you need to and put whatever you need to on the table immediately. And so I think it raises confidence. It increases team health and an ability to work well with one another. And quite frankly, you move faster because you're putting the true condition on the table. Now you can actually respond to it as opposed to waiting for what the actual real truth is somehow, some way with hope that it makes its way to the table.
All right, thank you so much for the analysis of that particular information. So when it comes to honesty is very, very, very great. And honesty is truth, just being truthful. All right. And being truthful sometimes can actually lead into, give you some negative reactions. So how do you recommend, as a business leader, how do you recommend handling situation when being honest could lead to negative reactions? Maybe being honest will mean your client will say, you know what, we can't work with you anymore. Could be your staff just resigning and say, okay, we can't really do this anymore. So how do you recommend handling that particular situation?
Yeah, sometimes when the truth hurts, which the truth often does for people, I really think it's because they lack a growth mindset. So if the truth stings you and it hits you across the face and you have this big reaction to it and you wish you could try to control it and shape it and you're frustrated with it, it's really because you're not willing to grow from it. If you grew from every single negative statement, man, have you grown into a great professional. But I think a lot of times people crumble. I think a lot of times people are not resilient. They cannot absorb reality very well. And that's a problem, especially for an organization that wants to put truth or honesty on the table a lot more often. And I think the only way to crack that egg open is to just go there and see how it goes. So I liken it to, let's say you got a sales leader who's struggling. So I get this oftentimes in the session room. And a lot of times I get called matter of fact. And I think it's appreciated in most instances. But I will say things like, okay, so you did not hit your sales rock or your top priority. I'd like to ask why. Even that is difficult for leaders to ask because they're concerned about the feelings or what that truth might do to that person. And usually it's because you're fearful that that person cannot absorb the truth, that they cannot absorb the reality of the situation. And my thought to that is, what is that? Who you need is somebody who can absorb reality. And so a lot of times we have to help people handle the facts. And you can state facts without being brutally honest. There's a way to be 100% loving and 100% honest. And it's really hard to do. I think when you get into trouble with the truth is when you deliver it with brutal honesty. And if you look up what brutal is, it says violent in the definition. And so when you deliver violent truth, imagine how that is received. But to deliver loving truth, or in the case of honesty, being lovingly honest, it just lands better and can be absorbed easier. And then the team can graduate to just stating facts without adding the love to it, so to speak, because they're just better at absorbing the true condition of the team or of the company. So be 100% honest and 100% loving, and watch as the truth lands much easier.
All right. That's great. Thank you so much for all the information you've already shared today. I'm going to ask you as we begin to round up, I'm going to ask you another question. I just want your views on it. So, in the world we are today, especially when it comes to political leaders, they're not being honest. Even business leaders, some are not being honest. Like probably, you see like TikTok, and I don't want to start mentioning names. They never tell you what they do with people's data, and some they're not just being honest sometimes with their communication. So, why do you think many leaders, political, business, they struggle with being transparent, being honest in their communications? Even sometimes there might be some things happening in a country, but the leaders of a particular country might not tell you what the real truth, about the situation, which is so. Why do you think many leaders struggle with being transparent and honest?
Yeah. The words that come to mind are 3 words: power, money, and control. I think these are traps that pull us into less of an honest state of mind or less of an open state of mind. Jay, I'll share this. So oftentimes I get to meet politicians or just other individuals who are in those circles, and politics are hot right now for obvious reasons. And what I hear oftentimes is at a local level, they'll tell me, Ken, at a local level, open and honest, it's easier. And you're with these close-knit people, and we can do that. And then you talk to other people who talk about more powerful figures. And the deeper and higher you go, up the ladder, if you want to use that phrasing, the harder and harder it is to be honest and open. And I often think of politicians that are selling us a bill of goods that they cannot deliver on simply to get more votes. And I think what we have to do as a responsible population is not accept that anymore. We can't let people get away with it. Oftentimes we're giving liars a platform, and we're feeding that platform, and we're feeding them, and we're not challenging it enough. So when people, I love it when I watch BBC News a lot, and I love it when they do fact checks. I just love that because I know what's going to happen. Somebody exaggerated something or gave some misinformation. Great. That is excellent journalism. We need to call that kind of stuff out. And so when a leader's not being honest, don't tolerate it. When they're not being open and they're not listening to you without reservation, that means they're not valuing your opinion. They are not taking the time to listen to you without reservation. Don't tolerate it. We can do better. We have a chance to do it much better. I'm glad to hear that at a local level, it's got a chance. It now just has to have a deeper reach in the political channels so that someday we get a political leader who is all about radical transparency, who's going to admit mistakes, who isn't going to sell us a bill of goods they can't deliver on. And I think at some point that's going to be so attractive that that's who becomes the leader of our nation or state or county. And it's hard. And the three words to bring you back to it: power, money, and control. And that does things to people because they desire that so much.
Power, money, and control. Hmm. All right. So thank you for the analysis. Because I don't know what
Maybe
to say
part
after
two.
that. Because it just
It's
it's
pretty
just
deep.
like it's pretty deep, just like you said. So now I often do this, right? I always like let my guests, to make the show great, for them to suggest 5 to 10 resources that people can check out to learn more about this topic for today or the information shared today. So what platform or what 5 things, whether resources, whether website, whether book or audio, whatever the thing is, that they can listen to be able to learn more about honesty, especially in a business or leadership settings.
Well, thanks for allowing me to have this selfish moment, and I'll use it. You can go on Instagram and find us there. Look for No Honesty, and that's KNOW, No Honesty. LinkedIn, I'm big on LinkedIn, so I'd love to engage with you there. You can look me up, Ken Bogard, Ken Bogard. You can email me, ken@nohonesty.com. I'm happy to reach you there. And then our website is nohonesty.com. And if you go through the website, it has our assessment. Our assessment to measure how honest and open you are is currently free. And I think it will be that way for at least another year. We've had hundreds of people take it and have hundreds of ahas come back to us. So please take advantage of that. And you'll be signed up for our newsletter as well that goes out monthly with some pretty profound things on it. And lastly, our book that's going to have all this rich stuff in it is October 18th, which will be available on Amazon, also Audible, and Barnes and Nobles.
All right. Thank you so much. You've heard it, so you can get all the resources needed. So as a closing thought, what's the most important lesson you've learned about the power of honesty in business communication that you like every leader to take to heart?
Yeah, thank you. The most important part of this equation is not honesty, it is actually openness. And openness, again, is to listen without reservation, to put your needs and wants on pause for a freaking minute for another human being in this life. We live on a world that has been designed for 8 billion people. Do not design this world for one human being, which is yourself, and open yourself up to the beautiful differences that exist in this world. And I promise you, you will be a happier human being.
All right. Thank you so much for the session. Thank you for the information provided. So, as we round up today, I just want to thank all the listeners for tuning into the episode of the Winner Circle podcast. And I want to thank you, our amazing guest, Ken Bogard, for your input and knowledge shared on today's topic, the power of honest communication and why transparency matters for business leaders and entrepreneurs. So I want to say thank you again. And for the listeners, don't forget to subscribe for inspiring conversation and tips for success. Until next time, keep striving for greatness. Have a nice day, guys. All right.